And we are rolling on May 2nd at UCLA, where we are about to hear a film speech from Caesar. It's a beautiful day. The sunshine is shining. Eat your heart out, Missouri.
Hi everyone, my name is Caesar.
Hi, Caesar.
So what is the American dream? To my parents, the American dream was the opportunity to provide me with a quality education, which I couldn't be given in Mexico. But my education would come with a heavy price. My parents would have to immigrate from Mexico to the United States without proper documentation, and they would have to leave behind the place they called home. Today I want to share with you a film that really moved me because it epitomizes my story of when I immigrated to the United States and my pursuit of a better life. Under the Same Moon has the ability to evoke within me happiness, sadness, and anger.
Deals with significant themes.
Yeah, this film deals with some significant themes that I know you would be interested in. For example, Owen Gleiberman of the Entertainment Weekly says of the film that it conveys the message that the U.S. immigrant situation is untenable, but then it forces us to ask what should be done. And I agree with this because the film has the ability to shed the light on illegal immigration from the United States, from Mexico to the United States, without all of the politics. So the first way in which the first emotion this film evoked within me was happiness. And specifically in this film, towards the end of the film, Carlitos is able to reunite with his mother, Rosario, after she's able to cross the border. And this reminded me of my own situation 20 years ago when I finally reunited with my mother here also in the United States after she crossed the border. And so then it brought happiness to me because I had like a flashback back to that moment where I finally reunited with my mother, and like there's nothing better than for a child to be with his mother. And that's for happiness. And how the second way in which this film made me feel was it evoked sadness because specifically there was a scene in the film where Rosario is working as a housekeeper. She provides housekeeping services for Mrs. McKenzie, a lady who hires her, and upon learning that she has no legal status, she threatens her pay by saying that she's gonna call immigration on her, and she tells her to just leave her home, and she refuses to pay her for her services. And this reminded me of also a story my mother told me that when she first came here, she would work as a housekeeper, and she would constantly be scared from her pay on the basis of her her legal status. And so that scene was important to me because combining it with my mother's experiences of discrimination, I was able to understand that just because someone doesn't have proper status doesn't make them less human. And after all that discrimination my mother went through, luckily now she's a legal resident, so she doesn't have to deal with what she dealt 20 years ago, but it's still it keeps me at sympathy with people who still don't have proper documentation to be in the United States.
Good.
And then the final emotion this film is able to evoke within me is anger. Specifically, when Carlitos, on his way to his mother, is forced to work on a field to make money and be able to afford the trip to Los Angeles from, I think he's in San Diego, and he has to work in the field. And all of a sudden, they're raided by immigration, and it evoked anger within me, specifically because they were workers and they were being, apprehended on the basis just of their legal status rather than previous criminal record or something like that. Like, understand that that's what Homeland Security is for, but they were being targeted just because of the status rather than for them doing something wrong or like that was out of line. And so, in summary, I have told you about 3 different emotions this film, Under the Same Moon, evoked within me. And there should be no doubt in this room that this film really moved me because through it I was able to see some of my life story portrayed on the screen. And as a current UCLA student, I think that it's safe to say that my parents fulfilled their American dream by me being here at UCLA. And that's it.
Thank you. Time?
5:20.
5:20. Let's start on the left side today. Hello.
Hi, my name is Chelsea.
Hi, Chelsea.
And I really like your speech. I really like the movie. I agree with the film critic that you quoted. I like how you were very clear on, this made you happy, this made you mad, and it made you sad as well.
Mm-hmm. So the emotion he was communicating,
Yeah.
you knew what they were. He stated them. Improvement, please.
Hi, I'm Alan.
Hi,
Of
Alan.
course, I'd have to criticize a very emotional speech, and it was a really good speech. I just feel like you need to emanate more confidence because you knew what your speech was, but it seemed like you were a little like softer spoken. You were almost afraid to give the speech. So just be more confident in the speech. You're a good speaker. You had a good speech. There should be no reason why you should be afraid to deliver a good speech like that.
That's a receptive comment. On confidence, Caesar, we sometimes say, fake it till you make it. And walk up there like you own the room and speak like you own the room. And it's that hesitant, slow kind of pausing that gives it away, right? And suggests to your audience you're not quite sure of yourself. Well, I liked the speech. I thought you chose well. You chose something that you could relate to with your own life, and so that was excellent. Let me get you in the view a little better. You start with a rhetorical question: what is the American dream? And you said it again in the end, and you said part of the American dream, at least, is me going to UCLA. So good tie back, and so that was excellent. On the rest of the introduction, you provided us with a sort of an unexpected fact in that you explained that your parents were illegal when they came to this country. Take your hands out of your pocket, let them just fly free, yeah. And so that was a good grabber and got some more attention for your speech. On your thesis preview, I would have liked a little better vocal intonation of when you got to the 3 parts. So happiness, sadness, and anger needed to be brought out a little better because that's your roadmap. That's where your audience knows how to follow you. Yeah, great movie, by the way. On the SIG statement, you quoted Owen Gleiberman from Entertainment Weekly, who talked about the current immigration situation as being untenable. And I'm not sure how much light the film shed on policy questions, but it certainly shed a light on the human dimension of immigration and the terrible toll that it takes on human beings that are trying to immigrate and get split up and so forth. But it was a good SIG statement, don't get me wrong. On your first feeling of happy, I felt you did a pretty good job of remembering reuniting with your mother, and I felt that you remembered it, and we got the feeling of the unity, so that was well done. On your second emotion of sad, you spoke of people using people's illegal status to withhold pay, and you spoke that your mother experienced something like this. What I expected was just a little bit more indignation and sadness, and maybe even a little anger mixed in with your sadness. And it really made me sad that my mother had to go through this and be in fear every day and really remember how sad you felt and say it. And that's why I felt so sad when I remembered that people blackmail people that don't have proper documentation. Yeah. Your final one, anger, could have used a little work. It was kind of a throwaway. You talked about Homeland Security, and what I didn't get was you talked about the anger you feel when you see ICE doing raids, right? Yeah. But you ended with saying, fortunately, my family is all legal. But I guess you're still angry and still seeing ICE doing what they do, right? Yeah. Yeah. It's a tricky topic because, well, you know it's a tricky topic because some of the people are here illegally and also have committed numerous crimes. So, it's tough question. Your summary was good. Your conclusion was good. And your tie back was excellent. Your canais, improve your hand gestures, move 3 times, and have vocal variety. How did it go, Caesar?
Just with the tone variety, I feel like I'm not confident when I was up here, so
right.
Like, it makes my voice sound shaky.
Yeah. Okay. What to do about that? Practice a lot till you see that you can do it, you can speak, and you can speak with confidence, and it's no big deal. Your movement was pretty good, and watch yourself with your hand gestures. They were fine. There was nothing problematic about them. So overall, you did a good job, and you turned in your self-evaluation. So good job, Caesar. Thank you. Okay, could we hear from Felix, please? Hi, how you doing? Ready to rock and roll?
Ready to over, B.
Excuse me, Ma?
Is it ready to over, B?
Great. Okay. Well, that's good. Let me adjust the camera. You're a little taller than most. Okay. Okay. You ready? Felix stands before you, managing attention, communicating respect, easing, finding friendly eyes near the front and center. Say your name. Feel the love. Start your speech.
Hey, hi, Felix.
Hi, Felix.
Have you ever felt that your day, your week, your quarter was lacking something that made you enjoy it less? Have you ever asked yourself this question? Well, it may be that in the pursuit of good grades, a good education, a healthy diet, or just precious sleep, we lose a part of ourselves. So, speaking for the paraphrased words of Cat Williams, sometimes you got to be a little selfish, but with your school, with your life, you got to be a little selfish. You got to be in tune with your star player. That's the person that looks in you in the mirror every day. The movie that I'm going to tell about today is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. It made my heart feel heavy, or heavy-hearted. It made me feel alive, and also it made me curious. I know you will enjoy this movie because in 2012 magazine article by the Times, Mary Poles discusses the movie, discussing how, I'm paraphrasing here, discussing how it dealt with loss, it dealt with tragic loss, it dealt with kissing random people, and it dealt with growth from the loss. Now I paraphrase, but I do agree with her description of the movie and her perception of the movie. But let me dive in it from a different perspective. So first this movie made me feel heart heavy because in a scene where
Charlie, played by Logan Lerman, was at a party.
Charlie, played by Logan Lerman, was at a party after he met his friend. He met some new people at a football game. Now mind you, during this time he had eaten a edible or a brownie that had been filled with weed, and now he's high as a kite. While his new friend Sam was making him a milkshake, he confides to her that his former best friend had killed himself. But he said it so straight-faced and without much emotion that it seemed like he really didn't feel any pain from that loss. Mm-hmm. Now this made me feel hard because recently I had lost my grandmother, and she was elderly. She passed away naturally. When I initially heard it, when I initially got the news, though I was heartbroken, I immediately felt a sense of numbness. All that sadness, all that pain just went nowhere, and it didn't stay. And even when I went to her funeral, I felt like my heart wasn't racing. No tears dropped on my face. I was straight-faced. I don't know why I couldn't feel any emotion. When I felt this, I was afraid. I was terrified because for someone that was a part of my life for the majority of it, I couldn't feel any emotion towards her. And to lose her and not feel anything, it makes me feel like I'm losing a sense of my own humanity. Now, going on a more higher note, this movie made me feel alive because in a famous scene when Charlie, Sam, and Patrick are going through the famous tunnel throughout the movie, and the infamous tunnel song that they're playing is "Hero" by David Bowie. Patrick asked Charlie because Charlie felt confused. Charlie looked different, and he asked, "What's wrong, Charlie?" And Charlie was like, "I feel infinite." This reminded me of a time where, as you may already know, I drew this one picture. It was of two snakes in a heart. One snake was penetrating the heart, and another snake was being created from the heart. So aside from the picture, it made me feel alive because when I spent all my time putting into this picture, every detail, every minute that I put into this picture, every scale, every ounce of shading that I put in this picture, when it all came together and I actually finished my piece, I felt that I could do anything. I felt that I could push myself any further that I could push myself, and there was no limit to how far I can go. I felt that how far that I have no end, and I can keep going further and further within my skills. So So when I felt this, I felt that I felt unstoppable. I felt like there was not a picture I could draw. There was not a place I could go. There's not a place I can go. So it made me feel like the world is actually my oyster, and I choose how I choose to use it. Now finally, this film made me feel curious because in the scene where Charlie is talking with his teacher, Charlie asks his teacher, why do we choose people who treat us like dirt? And the teacher tells him, we choose the love we think we deserve. And this makes
Here at 6 minutes, so
speed it up.
close it down.
Alright. So to speed it up. This made me feel curious because my best friend was going through a tough time. She broke up with a boyfriend. She was feeling heartbroken, but then she quickly gave up. She quickly keeled over and went back to him. It made me feel curious because I was wondering why would she go back to a guy that treated her like dirt. But I kind of soon realized that she didn't see herself how I saw her. She didn't see herself as highly as I saw her. So when I felt this, it made me realize that how we perceive ourselves is very powerful to how we act towards others. In summary, I told you how this movie made me feel heartbroken, made me feel heart heavy, it made me feel alive, but also made me curious. No without a shadow of a doubt that this movie had an impact on me. So as I said before, like Cat Williams, if you're feeling that you're dragging your feet in your life, sometimes take a step back and look at yourself and say, are you in tune with your star player? Because that's the person that's going to see you every day. Thank you.
Time?
It was over 6 minutes.
6 minutes and what?
I stopped at 6
Well,
minutes.
keep it going, but tell me at 6 minutes.
Okay, probably like
22 seconds.
6:22.
Oh, we got someone checking you. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, sir. You, please. Caesar.
I thought you did a good job delivering your speech. You had a good movement. Maybe just improve on your timing next time.
Yeah, you gotta time these things and be less wordy, especially in your plot summary. We just need 2 sentences. I keep saying this, everybody. 2 sentences. You know, we don't need this long thing. We need longer on you at your grandmother's funeral and all that, where you're really giving us your emotions. See, the setup is, boom, boom. Improvement, please.
Hi, I'm Ichan.
Hi, Ichan.
So, I feel that this is a very nice speech, very nice topic, and the storyline with our chosen stories, but it goes a little bit lengthy, I think. Due to a little bit lack of practice, I think you need to practice a little bit more so the speaking is more fluent and you don't really repeat what you said a couple of times, so make it more concise and more fluent.
Great. That's good advice. Felix, you started with a rhetorical question. Like to see you branch out next time to a poem, a quote, a story, even a joke. Not really a big guy on rhetorical questions, but you did add Cat Williams and the sort of the star player notion, and that was good. So you got our attention that way. So that was a good start. Your thesis, you told us heavy-hearted, alive. It made me curious, so that worked. That was done well. Your 6th statement, you quoted your review nicely, and you notice he said whether he agreed or disagreed with it. That's important that you say that about your quote. You don't just quote it, but you say, I agree or I disagree. And a little bit of why. A little bit long, but could have edited there just after you get the quote out. They disagree, significant themes, love, hate, murder, doom. Now, more bringing out the narrative with your voice. The first way the film moves made me feel heavy-hearted, so we get the emotion emphasized and where you are in the narrative, Felix. We got the Logan Lerman deal. Yeah. And you told us a good story about your grandmother, and you were close to her, and yet it scared you because you were essentially numb. You didn't shed a tear. You just sat there and watched and were kind of, I don't know, in denial or just numb and didn't have any reaction. And this sort of made you, as you put it, heavy-hearted. I would like you to return to that emotion instead. And being so numb made me feel very heavy-hearted. Okay? Return to the emotion you're communicating. On Alive, you quoted the song Heroes by the late David Bowie. I feel infinite, you said. And here you gave us great details of why you felt infinite when you drew a particularly good drawing of an Escher-like snake, I guess, that you were very happy with, and you felt it started as an idea in your mind and you put it onto paper and it became something that you were very proud of. And what you needed to come back to and say is that's why in doing that I never felt more alive in my life. Tell your audience what you're feeling, what you're describing. See, re-feel it, remember it. Okay. Now on Curious, good and bad people. We started to get into a long story about, somebody beat somebody, but you were at 6 minutes when you got there, so we couldn't really get that. Summary conclusion, what you wrote was good. You didn't speak it. And your tie back to Cat Williams was good. Did you identify who Cat Williams is?
Yeah, or I didn't overtly say who he was.
Okay, see, that's helpful to give credibility to your quote. Your canais were to work on your posture, your hand movement, and the flow of your speech. How did it go, Felix?
Well, obviously, the flow kind of flowed like a creek.
Flowed like a creek, huh?
It's been, muddled with rocks and whatnot, but...
Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. Okay.
But my hand gestures have improved, and my posture is better. I'm not swaying as much as I
right. That's good. Okay. Well, keep working on that and work on the timing. And I like the fact you did it without notes and extemporaneously. And just work on a few of the things we talked about, and you'll be in great shape. Thank you, Felix. No. Just give me a second. Okay, who wanted to volunteer? Free country. People are dying in Iraq and Syria, so you have freedom and liberty. Enjoy it while you can. Do you have your self-evaluation attached?
Yes.
Stapled? Excellent. Danny stands before you. Oh, you're at different heights. Yes. Danny stands before you, managing attention, communicating respect. Close that computer and keep it closed. Finding friendly eyes near the front and the center. Say your name. Take a half step forward. Looks like you're hiding from the audience. Say your name. Feel the love. Start your speech.
Hi everybody, I'm Danny.
Hi, Danny.
And I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence. I think without saying the name of this movie, you guys already know exactly what I'm talking about. This quote is from the movie National Treasure, a completely underappreciated film masterpiece from 2004. And I'd like to say that this line is actually one of the best-known movie quotes of the early 2000s period, and I think a lot of you guys would agree with me. I rewatched this film hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times as a child, watching Nicolas Cage run through historical landmarks searching for buried treasure, as ridiculous as that sounds. I'm going to tell you how this film moved me in 3 ways. It made me happy, it inspired me, and now when I watch it, it makes me feel very, very nostalgic. The Washington Post at the time said that National Treasure is the film equivalent of comfort food. Expect indigestion, cholesterol, and tiny bits of food stuck in your teeth for weeks after, and you'll have a damned good time. And I think that's a very, very accurate representation of what this movie is. I'm not going to try and argue that it should have won Best Picture at the Oscars in 2004, or that it's the best movie ever made, but as a child, it was absolutely mesmerizing and enchanting. Very aesthetically pleasing and very interesting to watch how all the history came together. It has significant themes involving history, family, and the legacy of family that I think you all will find very, very interesting. First, this film made me happy. And it made me happy because there's this really interesting dynamic between the 2 main characters, Ben Gates, played by Nicolas Cage, the one and only, and Riley, his comical nerd, techno guy counterpart. And their dynamic is most obviously seen in the scene where Riley's trying to convince Ben that it is impossible to steal the Declaration of Independence. It's just not going to happen. He comes up with this elaborate explanation of why it's impossible, and Ben completely shuts him down with 2 words, preservation room. I thought this was really, really entertaining because my parents occasionally have the same sort of dynamic. My mom will come up with all of these explanations for something, and my dad will be able to kind of, in a fun way, shoot it down in like 2 words. And that happened recently. We were planning a family vacation, and my mom came up with this whole elaborate idea and fun things that we're going to do, and my dad was kind of like, oh, well, what about this? And end of conversation. And so seeing that play out in such a different manner, but in the same sort of dynamic on screen is really, really entertaining to me, and I think it's absolutely hilarious, especially because my parents have not picked up on that similarity, even though they've seen the movie a billion times because I was obsessed with it. The second way this film moved me is that it inspired me. The main female character's name is Dr. Abigail Chase, and she's in charge of the National Archives with the federal government. Before the boys meet her, they think that she's a man because she's in charge of the National Archives, and then they refer to her as that mean archives lady, the blonde, that hot woman. And I think that's not necessarily surprising based on what we see in movies a lot of the time, but once they get to know her, they realize how intelligent she is and how qualified and experienced she is as a member of the federal government. And as someone who is very interested in history as a child, that was so, so inspiring to me. I had my president's book, and I watched the Colbert Report, like Alan said, and I was super into the History Channel, and I was a total history nerd. And so seeing this really, really influential, inspiring woman on screen doing amazing things was amazing to me. I forced my parents to take me to Washington, D.C., and we went to the National Archives, and I got my copy of the Declaration of Independence. I was a total nerd. But even now, like, having that woman kind of serve as an inspiration has definitely made my path looking towards possibly entering the federal government a little bit easier and a little bit more feasible seeming. The third way this film moved me is that it makes me feel very nostalgic. So throughout the film, they go through all these different places across the East Coast, different historical landmarks. One in particular is in Philadelphia. They go to the Franklin Institute, then they go to the Independence Hall and do all that, they find glasses, etc. And then they're chased into this mini market in Philadelphia. And that makes me very nostalgic because I've been to Philadelphia and it's one of the best memories I've ever had. Last summer I was lucky enough to attend the Democratic National Convention, which was in Philadelphia. And while I was there, the group that I went with, we went to the Franklin Institute. And then we went to Independence Hall and heard from historians about how everything worked there. And I had my first Philly cheesesteak in that same mini mart that Abigail and Riley run through. So now every time I watch that movie, not only am I enjoying it because it's awesome, but I also am reminded of such amazing memories I've had and the amazing experiences I've been lucky enough to have as well. In conclusion, I've told you 3 ways why this movie has moved me. It has made me happy, inspired me, and has made me nostalgic. I think there is no doubt in anybody's mind that I was severely influenced by this film in more ways than just becoming weirdly defensive of Nicolas Cage anytime someone tried to criticize him as a child. I did not understand why people didn't like him, which I think is kind of funny looking back on it. But I also think that I could argue that it has influenced all of us in a certain way. I'm not going to steal the Declaration of Independence, and I doubt anybody in this room is either. But I think I speak for all of us when I say anytime you look at that document, there's going to be a small part of you that wonders, just a little bit, if there actually is a treasure map on the back. Thank you.
Thank you. Time?
5:07.
5:07. Perfect. Go ahead, yeah.
Hi, I'm Lydia.
Hi, Vidya.
I really liked your speech. 'Cause I mean, I get it, like the guilty pleasure movie and stuff, but you made it pretty interesting in how you tied specific parts of the story to like things that moved you, and it was easy to follow. So like we kind of got invested in your experiences as well. And generally, you just have like a good speaking style, and it was interesting, and you were very watchable.
Thank you.
I think she has a natural enthusiasm for her subject and topic that's contagious if you have it. You could tell she was excited she could go to the Philadelphia sites and relive them, and we felt it too.
Hi, I'm Malia.
Hi, Malia.
Again, I really liked your speech, and like it's a very unconventional movie to pick for this assignment. Like most people are picking like happy, sad. I couldn't really find any criticism. Me personally, I just really like your enthusiasm. I think if you maybe had like a sad, you would have had your tone shift down, but you didn't have that. You had like upbeat emotion, so yeah.
She was perfect. Danny, hi. You started with a great grabber, an allusion to a film that you have to have been under a rock not to have seen, right? So I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence. Give it a pause. Best known movie quote of our generation. Nicolas Cage running through historical landmarks, chasing for one. Yeah, good intro, grabbed us. We saw him running. It was a good word picture. It was a good grabber. Yeah. It was also intriguing that you said you watched it so often. So we knew right away you were a big fan, right? Okay.
I actually have most of it memorized right now, which is kind of sad.
Yeah. On your thesis preview, you told us it made you laugh, it inspired you, and made you nostalgic. Just a little more on the roadmap of laugh, inspire, and nostalgic with your voice. Pump them a little so that they stand out for your audience. On your SIG statement, you quoted the Washington Post. And you, I guess, said you agreed with their assessment and said that it had important themes for the family and so forth. So that was well done. On Happy, you gave a very brief rundown of Ben and Riley, which is what I was looking for. Who was the one that went so long? Okay, and yeah, Felix. And that's all you needed. It was enough. And then you told us of your parents having the similar kind of back and forth dynamics, and you were smiling and laughing, and we could feel you remembering how funny it is, and so we got you or felt sensing that funniness. My only criticism in this is, as you've heard me say to others and learn from others when I criticize, when I'm giving critique, don't think this is a time to text or to kick back and daydream about the beer you're going to have tonight. You know, see if you could do it yourself. So I would have liked to have said, and that's why the film made me happy. But besides happy, running narrative, it also inspired me, particularly Dr. Abigail Chase. Was, well, let me just say it, was my role model, was somebody that I wanted to be, right? And then you go into your thing, and then you explain why you were inspired, Declaration of Independence, and that was very believable. So we felt and believed that you were inspired, but once again, and that's why I felt inspired. Okay. On nostalgic, Yeah, this was good, and you told us you went to the Democratic National Convention, and you saw the landmarks, the Franklin Institute, the Independence Hall, and you didn't mention the Mini Mart, but I guess you had a Philly cheesesteak. Now, those little details made the story really good and come alive, so that was good. And that's really why I'm doing all these things, made me nostalgic for the film, and right? And that experience. Say it. Summary, good. Conclusion, good. And tie back, excellent. Improve. More hands, don't hold them awkwardly in front of you. Don't walk as much forward. No ums or likes. How'd it go?
I think it went pretty well. My hands, I only caught myself doing this like once or twice, and then
Good.
I immediately stopped, so
Good.
I was proud of that. And I stayed behind the red line, like you said. And
Good.
then the ums and the likes, I only noticed myself doing it like
Couple
maybe
of
5 times.
Yeah. Okay, good. And if you really have a problem, this goes for any of you folks, then have somebody raise their hand when you're practicing, when you do an or a like, and it'll help sensitize you to doing it so often. But really, excellent job, Danny. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to Brian Firks.
There you go.
What can I say? He needs the green meanie is what I say. Okay. Brian stands before you. Man, she's got something in her hand. I hope it's not a phone. Managing attention, communicating respect, finding friendly five. They're talking. Communicating respect non-verbally, saying I respect my audience, really mean it. Find friendly eyes near the front and center. Say you're taller than the last person. Say your name, feel the love. Start your speech.
Hi, I'm Brian.
Hi, Brian.
There's a rose called the American Beauty. Its petals grow pink and red in the sunlight. It's soft as silk. It is the image of beauty. But if you go below the surface, you'll find twisted, rotten roots, gnarly and disgusting. This is the image of the film American Beauty, and these type of roses persist throughout its suburban landscape. Today I'm going to tell you about a film that really moved me, American Beauty. I'm going to tell you about how it made me feel self-conscious, it made me scared, and it ultimately made me feel hopeful. Kenneth Turan of the Los Angeles Times said this film is about the frustrations that hide underneath the perfectly mannered surfaces of our lives. While I think this is true, I think the film is really about more than that. While it's about these little frustrations people have in suburbia, I think it's really about finding beauty in the little things in life that all of us can appreciate.
Good.
So first I'm going to tell you about how this film made me feel self-conscious. So, Lester Burnham, the main character of the film, is a middle-aged man who lives in a suburban maze. White picket fences, perfectly trimmed planters, identical houses as far as the eye can see, and he is bored out of his mind. Now this made me feel self-conscious because I am from suburbia as well. I grew up in this world and it was my home, it was my perfect world. All the green trees, identical houses, I loved it. So when I came to UCLA, I really wanted to show it to everyone. So I brought one of my friends from school, a city kid, back to my hometown. I thought he would love it, he would want to see everything. What does he do when he gets there? Insults every single bit about where I live. You live in a cookie cutter. There's nothing to do here. All your friends are clones of each other. was ruined. It tore me apart, and it made me feel really self-conscious. So whenever I watch the film and see this middle-aged man hating his life in suburbia, now I think about myself, and it makes me very self-conscious.
Good.
So now that I've told you about how the film made me self-conscious, I'm going to tell you about how it made me scared. At the end of the film, Lester is sitting in his house all alone, having a very peaceful moment, when a gun gets raised to his head, and he gets shot in the back of the head. Nobody expects it. He's in his own home in suburbia. This isn't a place where this is supposed to happen, right? But it does happen to Lester. Now this made me feel scared because it reminded me of the time that I almost died when I was 5 years old. I was in Mammoth in the summertime, on a pier, looking out at the water. The pier was swaying back and forth, and my eyes were trained on that black water. And the next thing I knew, I was underneath the water. And I was flailing. 5 years old, I had had no swimming lessons. I didn't know what I was doing. I was reaching, grasping for the surface, and I clawed my way all the way up to the top, and the pier was right above my head. I hit my head on the pier and started sinking back down and down and down, my lungs aching, everything burning. And then luckily, I felt hands grab me. My dad had jumped into the water after me and pulled me out, and there we both were shivering, him holding me in his arms as he brought me back in. So that was a time that really scared me and was completely unexpected. I still wake up in the middle of the night terrified of dying. I can't imagine the world going on without me in it. You know, my memory just being erased while people live on and on and on, and there's nothing left of me there that can persist. So that is a thought that really scares me, and the film definitely evoked that in me. So now that I've told you about how the film made me feel scared, I'm going to tell you about how it ultimately made me feel hopeful. When Lester dies at the end of the film, there's a montage that you see where he remembers all the little moments of his life that were important to him. The wrinkles of his grandma's hands, the shine of his first new car, the warm autumn leaves that he remembers as a kid. This made me feel really hopeful because it says you can find beauty in the little things in life, and when you're at the end, you can appreciate these things and look back and find meaning in your life in some way. So this reminded me of an experience that I've actually seen my dad have. Every night, my dad goes to our backyard and he sits down and he waits. And he's joined by a little friend who comes and visits him every night. It's a hummingbird that comes every night at sunset and takes its perch on a little branch in our backyard. And my dad loves it. He goes outside every night to see this happen. And he's given the hummingbird a name, Horton. Horton the hummingbird. So every night he goes out to see Horton the hummingbird, and my neighbor actually gave him a hummingbird feeder so that Horton can come back more and more and more. And I really love this because it made me feel hopeful, just like the film. It made me see that my dad has found beauty in this little thing that he can do every single day, and I know it's something that's going to stick with him. So I've now joined him. Whenever I go home, I sit in the backyard with him, and we both watch Horton the hummingbird together. So in summary, I've told you about how this film made me feel self-conscious, it made me feel scared, and it made me feel hopeful. In the end, this film is not as much about the frustrations in suburbia, it's about finding beauty in the little things in life. So while the roots underneath the American Beauty plant may be gnarled and rotted and twisted, you can still find some beauty in the beautiful petals above or in the hummingbird that's hovering right nearby. And in the end, I think this will make us all feel that we're okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to put your critique on a new segment because the battery is about to expire and I don't want this to automatically erase, okay?